Chris, thanks for joining us. What was your gut feeling prior to tip-off last night?
The gut feeling, I would say, was the game could have played out one of two ways. There was a sense that Oklahoma City could just boat race Indiana. The Pacers left it all on the floor in Game 6. I mean, they expended a lot of energy, and it's really hard to do that 2 games in a row, especially when that second game is on the road in a building that has, a ton of juice to it. The other potential outcome was another miraculous Indiana, fourth quarter comeback where they pull out a very narrow victory. So going into that game, that was the sense that there were 2 outcomes that there could be.
Obviously, when Hallebertton goes down, you don't know how Indiana's going to react to that. But the sense in the building was what at that point?
I've never experienced anything like that in all my years of covering basketball, where there is so much energy in the building for a game and in the first quarter of a game. And then to have that energy completely taken out of the building, the air taken out of the balloon. It was in that moment, everybody in that building realized the significance of what had just happened. From the fans to the coaches to the players, to the media, you knew right then and there that something really bad had happened based on the reaction of Hallebertton, how the Thunder players reacted, how quickly all the Pacers players got on the floor to circle him. It was strange, like just it was pandemonium in one moment, and then it was eerily silent in the next, because everybody just knew that we just seen something pretty horrible on the floor.
15, 20 years from now, we'll look back on this NBA Finals, and we will remember what?
Oh, I think off the top, you probably remember the Hallebertton injury. It's like it takes nothing away from Oklahoma City and what it accomplished. I mean, and look, Hallebertton, no Hallebertton, holding Indiana to 43 points in the second half, winning the third quarter 34-20, putting their stamp on the game. I mean, that's how you win. Like that was a statement second half, specifically that third quarter by Oklahoma City. But it's going to be one of the great what-ifs, not just because Hallebertton got hurt, Dan, but Hallebertton was cooking in that moment. He was 3 of 5 from the floor, 3 of 4 from three-point range. I mean, he was playing great basketball. I think when we look back on this and look at that series, you're going to say, wow, 6 ultra-competitive games. What might have happened in Game 7 if Tyrese Haliburton on the floor had the guy that had authored this incredible postseason story, one of the greatest postseason stories we've ever seen with the shots that he was making. Could he have done it one more time in Game 7 of the finals?
The future of OKC, we like to look at, hey, is this the embryonic stages of a dynasty? Although there's a whole lot of competition out west. So what's the immediate future with OKC?
I mean, I'm like a year removed from writing about the Celtics dynasty that was about to start, so God knows what could happen. We're just like 1 year ago today, we were talking about the age of Brown and Tatum and, Drew Holiday still in his prime, Porzingis, Derek White, like who was going to beat these guys? Like, and now the Celtics are looking at, at least a 1 year gap year and maybe longer. I do think, though, Dan, Oklahoma City is uniquely equipped to have some longevity for 2 reasons. One, there's going to be organic growth there. Like, you look at this team, like most of the guys are 27 and under, and guys like Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, Aaron Wiggins off the bench, they've got another level they can go to just through organic growth. I mean, I was talking to someone close to Chet last night, and they were like, he's going to be in the weight room all summer. Like, he's going to get stronger this summer. He's going to come back a better player. So I think there's room organically for them to grow. And look, one of the things that's prevented some of these recent champions from becoming the quote dynasties has been that they haven't had the replacement players. When some of their veterans have priced out under these new cap rules, they haven't had guys ready to step in. It's what stopped Milwaukee from getting there again. Denver, we know that as they've lost talent, other guys have not stepped up. Oklahoma City's different, though. Like Oklahoma City, I mean, they have a kid named Nikola Topic, who was their lottery pick last year, a guy that would have been inside the top 10 had he been healthy. He was out all year with a knee injury. When I talk to people in Oklahoma City about him, they're like, he's going to be in the rotation next year. Like, he's a 6'6" point guard that, has one of those dynamic European games. They've got something like 7 first-round draft picks in the next 4 drafts. The point is, they're not going to, or they're less likely to fall into that situation where when they lose pricey veterans like a Lou Dort, for example, they're not going to be able to replace them with guys that are close to that level. That's why I think this team, as much as any team over the last 6 or 7 years, has a chance to have some longevity at the top.
Talking to Chris Mannix, Sports Illustrated senior writer, joining us from Oklahoma City. Of course, the other big news, Kevin Durant being traded to Houston. Now, what does Houston impose on the rest of the NBA after this? How do they look or how do they feel after this move?
I think it's a great deal, and I think it was always the deal that was going to happen. I was reporting back in February that there was mutual interest at the time between Durant and certainly people within the Rockets, specifically Ime Udoka. But the Rockets were determined back then to see what that young team had, to see if Jalen Green could step up and become a guy that you could be trusted with the ball in a playoff scenario. They wanted to see what that team had. They figured out it was lacking a player like Kevin Durant, and they went out and got him. And they didn't have to give up a lot. I mean, look, they were looking to part with Jalen Green anyway. He was no longer really a prospect to them. He was kind of just a bad contract to them. You give the 10th overall pick in the draft, that's whatever. Draft the 5 second-round picks is really just window dressing. That's not something that's all that consequential. And you get a guy that, even at 37 years old, is still one of the best scorers in the NBA. And you look at that team in the Golden State series, Dan, what were they missing? A guy that could get them a bucket in the fourth quarter. It can't always be Alperen Sengun, with the ball in his hands down the stretch. Kevin Durant's going to help them a lot, to the point where, like, if I'm making a power rankings of kind of who is Oklahoma City's biggest threat next year, Houston's right there at the top, 1 or 1A, with maybe a team like Denver as the biggest threats in the Western Conference to the Thunder.
What's the future of the Phoenix Suns?
Just making bad decisions over and over again and not stop. Like, what does that roster even look like right now? Like, you've got Jalen Green, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker. How does that work? Like, who's sharing the ball in that particular situation? Like, I'd like to give Phoenix the benefit of the doubt and think that maybe they have another move left in them. And people around the league have been talking to me about that like, there's no way, right? You can have that, backcourt or 3-person rotation going to the next season. But Bradley Beal is untradeable. There's no real market for Jalen Green. They've said they're not going to trade Devin Booker. So I don't know I don't really know what they're trying to do. Like, the big win for the Rockets and all this, Dan, is that they didn't have to give up any of the Suns' draft capital that they own. So that they can, continue on their path of trying to, win with the group that they have while simultaneously rooting for, the self-destruction of the Phoenix Suns. Yeah. So in 2027, 2029, they can have those draft picks and continue to flesh out their roster. I just thought it was a big win for the Rockets. And Phoenix, they were out there, trying to recoup close to what they got from, what they traded for Durant back a few years ago, and laughed out of the room. San Antonio didn't really have any interest. They're going big game hunting, whenever, if and when Giannis becomes available. Miami wasn't going to give up any of its young pieces. I mean, we got to the point, Dan, where, like, Toronto wasn't going to part with Jakob Poeltl. Like, this is where we are. Jakob Poeltl, who was like the throw-in the Kawhi Leonard deal years ago, was a guy that Toronto was not going to give up for Kevin Durant. I mean, Phoenix tried. I'll give them credit for that, but, this was always how it was going to end. I don't think this makes them remotely better.
The deeper we get into the summer, the odds for Giannis to be traded are what?
So my understanding with Giannis is that he's going to sit back and see where the chips fall in all this. It is notable to me that the San Antonio Spurs hire Sean Sweeney to be their associate head coach. Sean was very close with Giannis in Milwaukee. He was Jason Kidd's top assistants, was over in Europe all the time working with Giannis. He's a credible coach alone. He's worthy of a coaching bump in San Antonio. But I did think it's notable they bring someone like that in. But I think Giannis is going to see what Milwaukee's able to do over the next week. The Bucks are trying, like they're making every effort, but they don't have a lot of draft capital to work with. They don't have a ton of movable contracts. They've got a conundrum with Brook Lopez, who's is a free agent and is going to be expensive for them to bring back. I just think Giannis wants to get to my read on it is Giannis wants to get to mid to late July, early August, and then see what's out there for him. If the Bucks have done something that might make him believe that they can compete next year, I think he's more inclined to stay. But if he's looking at a team that is going to be fighting for a berth in the play-in, that's when I think things could get interesting.
Great to talk to you again. Safe travels, Chris. Thanks for joining us.